Hello, this is Christy, and the purpose for this video today is it's designed to be a video of encouragement. I have a disability, and I know that it can be challenging sometimes to garden when you have limited mobility, but I just want to tell my story as a source of encouragement for people. I grew up in southwest Nebraska, and it's an area that has a lot of wheat, corn and wheat, and canyons, and it's a lot different than the geography in Iowa here, but I had a pretty normal upbringing. I did 4-H, did a lot of things normal rural kids do, and I was the third of seven. And in 1991, I was in my mom's conversion van, and I hit an icy patch in the road, and I was paralyzed from my waist down. Spent some time in Omaha in the hospitals, and then I went out to California so I could go through a program so I could learn to walk with a brace. And I had no mobility below my waist. It was a complete injury, but I do have a brace that I could walk with. Came back home and I met my husband Andrew in Omaha in 1995. And we were married in 1997. And I was able to use my brace and stand up. So that was nice that I was able to stand. And we bought our first home in 1998 in the Omaha area. But we frequently made trips back to Iowa, where he was from, and visited his parents on his family farm. And he was really not one that was cut out to live in town. He really did not enjoy it, but we stayed in town for the next several years. We had a little garden in our backyard, and I did accounting, and he did software engineering. Our first son was born in 2001. I left my job and stayed home so I could raise him. And so for the next few years, we just continued life as normal, except I was home with Eric. And our youngest son was born in 2004. And about that time, we were just really ready to get out of town. We wanted to raise the boys in a smaller school system, so we bought a farm a few miles from where Andrew grew up, and we put a house on it. We started building it in 2005, and it was finished. We made frequent trips back until it was finished, and it was done in February of 2006. And we packed up our bags and we sold our house in Omaha and we moved to Iowa. Bought the boys a puppy and actually a pair of beagles, and they lived the rural farm life that pretty much Andrew and I grew up in the same way. And they spent time outside running around barefoot in the country. We bought some chickens, and they had to kind of experience that things that you can't do in town. That that we were able to give them a taste of that in the country. And then we decided we wanted to grow gardens, and it kind of evolved over the years. It started out, we bought some equipment, and it was just yards around. It was within our yard, different gardens. Andrew would expand on those, and he would get more and more gardens as the years went on around the yard. And we learned to start plants inside, and we would put them in our gardens when the weather was nice enough. And from there, we had to go out to the fields. We just ran out of space, and he would spend time outside with the boys, and we both would, and we would work long days, and at night we were always tired, and but it always felt good. And we learned to just different farming methods, that we learned about predators that we had to protect our crops from. We built a high tunnel, and we learned how to harden our plants in our high tunnels. We had two. At the current time we only have one. We learned about animals that are really hard on your crops. We learned about squash borers. We learned about powdery mildew. We learned a lot. You just do. These problems are going to come, and you learn how to combat them. We put in drip lines for irrigation. We learned how to do that, which is good because it was the first summer we put those in, we had a horrendous drought. And so without that, our plants would have all died. So we started selling commercially that same year. It would have been 2011. We did a lot of farmers markets, and then 2012 we started selling to grocery stores in our local area. And we learned about pollinators, how to bring in the bees and the butterflies. And one thing I did learn that I was able to do, I became really interested in a butterfly garden. And so I knew for our crops, if we wanted pollination, we would have to bring in the pollinators, and we had pretty good luck with that. But I really wanted a butterfly garden, and so we put one of those in the summer of 2015. I had designed it. I spent time online researching the different flowers, and I started them all in the house. And Andrew put them in the ground for me, and it was a great summer for being able to just sit down there and see all the butterflies and the bees. We didn't have a lot of time because we were selling produce, but it was still a lot of fun. And so each year we've kind of expanded on those gardens, and we add more things, and it's just really it's really a relaxing place for me to be able to go. And it's a lot of work, but we learned about borage. Borage is amazing for bringing bees in, and calendula, and we have an herb garden we have a lot of flowers in, and we have lily gardens. And my youngest son last year spent a lot of time bringing in mulch and weeding them all. And we have trumpet vines, and we learned about naturalization in our fields. And we don't grow crops in our fields other than our produce. And he just let it naturalize. He mows it down, and then it's amazing just to see nature take over the things that grow here natively. We converted our garage room into an area where we could process all of our produce, and we could get ready to take it to town. Buckets, we washed buckets all the time, and we filled the buckets, and we learned how uh, to market our stuff in town. We grew jalapenos for hot peppers. We grew jalapenos and hot Hungarians and habaneros and bell peppers, green, red, yellow, orange. And we filled bucket after bucket, everything we could find to fill, we pretty much did. And so we grew a lot of tomatoes. We would sell some. I would process a lot of tomatoes for our own use as well. Our biggest crop by far was zucchini. We grew more zucchini than anything else. We sold more zucchini than anything else. Zucchini is one of those crops that you have to pick every single day. And so it's in one season you're going to get a lot of pounds of zucchini. And so we grew a lot of pie pumpkins as well. Um, and we would decorate with our yield, and we would take it to town, and we washed them. I spent a lot of hours in this room washing zucchini and every other kind of produce that we had. And we would box it up, and we would take it to town, and we would be tired at the end of every day. But it was a great experience. And Andrew built me container gardens, and there was a lot that I wasn't able to do as far as getting down on the ground, but the container gardens just gave me a chance to learn how to grow just different things I wanted to try. I love flowers, so I did a lot with those. Green beans, because he did not enjoy picking them, and I could do that way. I did a lot of containers around, or just around our house. And so we learned a lot over the last decade and a half. But one thing that I learned to do was to process that food. We both grew up with moms that can, but it's a little different when you're on your own. So we grew the pumpkins, and we learned to cook them and to process them into pumpkin puree, and then we would freeze them. And we did the same with zucchini. We learned how to turn it into zucchini noodles, and we really liked that. We never had tried that before we grew it. So, and I froze it. And apples, we would make applesauce and apple butter, and we would can that. And we learned how to do a lot with grapes. We have some grape vines, and we learned how to make grape juice. And from the grape juice, then you can make grape jelly, and that's a mess. It's a really big job, and it's a messy job, but it's so much better than what you buy at the store. So we enjoy grape jelly. And I learned to process a lot with tomatoes. Sometimes I blend them whole, and sometimes I would take the skins off and put them in bags from there, and I would can them sometimes. And you can mix them with things, with the peppers, and freeze them that way, and you can use them all year. Peaches we had to buy because we didn't have them, but I can a lot of peaches. I have since we've lived here. And peppers, I freeze a lot of peppers. It's really handy to just be able to chop them up and put them in the freezer and use them in recipes. Can a lot of green beans. Started to learn to can pickled hot peppers, and those are really good on sandwiches, just whatever, pizza, tacos. Andrew did a lot with sunflowers. He put in bird plots for our 40 acres on certain patches. He'd put in bird plots, and we watched our farm transform over the last 15 years. It started out as a field, and we would see our trees get a little bigger, and our oak started to produce acorns, and this little barn that we popped up in the middle of nowhere became a yard. And I'll tell you, I give all the credit to Andrew for that. I watched him plant so many trees, and just he just works all the time. And he put trails through our farm, so walking trails, so it'd be easier to get through. And every fall, when the weather got cooler, and our first killing frost came, we were usually pretty tired, and so we welcomed that. And after the first killing frost, then we could rest. And we spent the long winter days, planning our future garden, and we couldn't wait until spring came again, and then we'd start the process all over. And somewhere along the way, our two sons grew up. And so we learned a lot through the years, but I think the thing I learned the most is I was capable of more than I thought I was capable of. And, this isn't an opportunity for me to lift myself up, it's to encourage others because there's a ton of reward in gardening. And if you have any interest at all in it, you might be amazed. Things like container gardening that really do make it easier. And there's hose, there's different equipment, there's things that really do make it possible. So that's the purpose of this video. It's just to encourage you. If you've ever been interested in it and you weren't sure if you have limited mobility, how hard it would be for you, I just encourage you to give it a try and see. You might be surprised. So anyway, thanks for taking the time to listen to this. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video.